Okay, let me go up here so people can see me, not that they really want to. Mitch, Rio Tinto, this is another amazing kind of talk. Mitch, looking forward to this.
Hello.
You on?
Yeah, I don't know, can you hear me?
Yeah, can do.
Okay.
Very much so.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it. I do say, I feel a little, I don't know if you noticed the last slide before here. Thank you. Had PhD after Michael and Carrie's names. No PhD here. And at the risk of getting kicked out, I don't know if anyone's done a selfie from the stage yet, but what are they gonna do, right, Jeff? So if you'll humor me a minute and smile. Okay. So my name's Mitch Pearson. I work for Rio Tinto Kennecott out of Salt Lake City. Rio Tinto is the second largest mining company in the world. Kennecott, for those of you who may not know, one of the largest open pit mines in the world. And so I'm here essentially representing a handful of technical trainers that work for me. Michelle's here. I got some guys in the back over here. We brought our team to kind of get excited. I'll tell you, I've been really impressed with the conference so far. Also been really impressed that some of you have teams that are looking at this kind of technology. We're literally just a handful of technical trainers that are excited about it and trying to get some stuff over the hump. And we've got a pretty cool product that we've partnered with Sketchbox, who's also here, I believe, somewhere as well, that we're really excited about. So I get really excited about this. When I do get excited about this, my brain and my mouth detach from time to time. So if that happens, right, I'll try and rein it back in, but thank you very much. So just a couple of things as far as what we want to talk about, right? And we're really new in this. We have our first product. We did our first training with it just in about the last 3 weeks. We have our second group that's going to start it next week or the week after using this as training. But a couple of key points that I want to talk about. Virtual can be better than the real thing. You will see when I show you our environment that they're working in and the environment that they have to train in, why that is so important here. And then this line about you can fly without ever having flown, I'll tell you just a little bit of the story, but we really want our people to hit the ground floor where they're working, knowing how to do what they're supposed to do. And then the other thing that is a bit of an inspiration or something we're working on is getting the right kind of feedback to folks, getting the data from the simulations that teach us what we need to be teaching them. So, and then we're trying to keep it simple, right? Again, this is our first attempt, and I won't tell you all the hurdles that we've had to go through, but there's a lot of hurdles to get there, right? And I don't know if some of your hurdles with your IT departments, I've been, again, envious to hear some of your experiences. If your IT response when you asked how to get support on the network was something like, we'll buy you a handful of hotspots. I don't know, that's been our experience so far, right? We haven't quite figured out how we're going to integrate everything that we're doing here. But we do know we have a use case. We do know that not starting is not an option. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit of story here about our work environment. So let me start here and imagine that it's your first day, okay, on the largest smelter and current only one of 3 smelters in the U.S., but the only one operating, I believe, currently. Your first day on the job. Okay, you're interviewed and hired. They told you you're going to be an operator, right? You look around, you see that it's kind of a strange place. There's a lot of stuff that you don't know what it is. It's a manufacturing environment that you've maybe experienced some of before, but maybe some not. You're told that you're going to be a tapper, okay, on the hot metals floor. You know maybe a few things about what that might look like, but you've been told a few things, but you really have no idea what that's going to mean in total for you. And so, and the other thing is everyone speaks a different language. The things they're talking about, the things they're saying, the acronyms they use all sound, you know, pretty foreign to you. How does that look for a work environment? So I heard a couple of folks talk about bad work environments. I'll put our work and training environment up against anybody's. So Here's the next exciting piece, okay? You've finished a week of safety and hazard training, right? You're ready to go to site and go to learn your actual tasks that you'll be doing. And this is what you come up the stairs, right? You walk up the stairs, everything's vibrating and humming, literally, in the building. And you do another safety briefing, and you suit up in 35 pounds of PPE, okay? We call these silvers. And the silvers and all the PPE, let me just go through it real quick. It's a supplied air respirator, in case you wondered. Helmet, hood, visor, earmuffs, Kevlar sleeves, the aluminized leather trench coat you see there, spats, which are for leg and feet protection, and then heavy protected boots. You've also got a really nice tinted visor, because it's for your protection, but what you also notice is that this really bright work environment you work in, which is not, is also now darker, because you're behind a visor, right, that's trying to keep you safe. You also are glad you have your earmuffs in, because you notice it's really loud, between 80 and 100 decibels, sometimes a little more, and it's really hot, even in December, because you're on a furnace floor. So, again, they affectionately call that outfit their silvers. So that's the work environment, but it's also the training environment that we have to deal with. And to add insult to injury, to make it a worse problem, it is an entry point into our smelter operations, right? There aren't people that exist with these skill sets. We have to train them, or at least they have worked for us in the past if they have the skill sets, because there just aren't that many people out there with the skills. And because it's an entry point into the business, as soon as they pick up new skills, they move on into other places in the business. Oh, and by the way, quite a few of them don't stick around more than a month or two, right? Because it is not for everyone. So that is the working and training environment. And because it's so loud, when you've got a trainer working with you on the floor, which has been our traditional methods, we have some classroom stuff, we have some computer work, we have some blended pieces, but the real work, and traditionally our folks are old school and would tell you nothing beats training in the field. Well, something has to, because this is a terrible way to train. It's really a hard environment for that. So it's also a 24/7 operation, and we have rotating shifts. And so the number of folks that are coming and going through that operation are significant. That built a bit of a perfect storm for us, but also a perfect opportunity. And we didn't even really talk ROI when we looked at this one. It was simply, look, we've got some safety cases here that make a lot of sense, and we just have a terrible training environment. So let's get to work building some of this out. So now, let me just have you imagine you're going to the same environment virtually, and you're being taught, following standard work instructions or safe operating procedures, how to do the same tasks virtually. And that's some of the work that we've been doing. Now, we started with the silvers and all of that. We want to explain to people how they work, how they wear them to keep them safe, that kind of stuff. Then but it's quiet, right? You're in a nice, really nice room that you can speak face to face with the instructor in the virtual world. We can have up to 20 folks that we know of in the virtual world. We hope to never have that many, but it's quite nice to be able to focus on the learning and the objectives and not have all of the distractions be a part of that. So this here is part of the real work environment that you'll see simulated here in a few minutes. And same kind of thing. This is tapping, and I will actually go through and explain what tapping is here in a bit. But it's one of the processes we use to control the what's in the furnace, right? The impurities, but also pressure and a number of other things. And so these guys are working together in this environment. They are communicating some, but you'll see on the one you can see he's got his supplied air respirator attached, again. So this is the real environment and what it looks like. And then let's go here. Okay, this is our, now imagine that we've replicated the environment, okay? And you'll see in this particular case, we've got trainee 1, trainee 2. You can see their views from there. The instructor has their view, right? They can actually talk to everyone in the environment, be giving instructions about what they should be doing, where they should be working. We can follow the SOPs, right? We can have them step through each of the steps as well in this process. So while this is playing, let me tell you a little bit more about the who we are and our why. So Kennecott, Bingham Canyon Mine, Kennecott has been in business now. Next year we'll celebrate 120 years of mining. So we've been around a while, right? Taking a lot of copper out of the ground. We currently produce about 15% of the U.S. domestic copper. So we have the largest smelter, as I said, in the U.S., also have the lowest carbon footprint in the U.S., which I suspect probably means in the world, but I don't know that I have that stat. So we're a little bit unique in that we have the full value chain. If you know mining operations and how they work, we actually have the mine, the open pit, we actually have our concentrator, we have a smelter, and we have a refinery. And I'll tell you just a few of those pieces. Again, explain it while these guys are working here in the background. So our end product is 99.99% pure copper cathode. That's grade A copper. So we drill and blast at the mine, send it to the concentrator. There's a process there where it's crushed some more. Then the copper is floated, literally floated in flotation cells. Then that flotation, it comes out as about 30% copper concentrate. That is sent to our smelter, which is where these folks are working. That 30% copper is then dried into what looks like coffee grounds, pressed, and loaded into these furnaces. And there's a series of furnaces they have to go through. Now, the first furnace is that 30% copper goes in, about 60% copper comes out, okay? And what these tappers are doing are helping to do part of that refinement process, and I'll explain that in a few. Then the next furnace, 60% in, 80% out. Then it goes into the final set of furnaces where 99% pure copper comes out, but that's not enough for the market. So then that copper is poured into 750-pound anodes. Those anodes are shipped by rail just a few miles to our refinery. And there they go through an electrolysis or electrolytic plating process where they're set down in the electrolytic cells, and then that copper migrates from those anodes to stainless steel blank, right? And when that gets there, impurities fall out of that as well in the process, which, by the way, most of those impurities that fall out are heavy metals, precious metals, so we get a fair amount of gold and silver out of our operation. And then those come out as copper cathode, okay? That's now 99.99% pure. So that's just a little bit of that. Let me tell you a little bit about copper itself, right? Most of you probably know. Mining doesn't always have a favorable public opinion, right? People don't necessarily love what we do. But while they're tweeting their anger from their smartphone, right, it's not lost on us that we need those minerals. And frankly, for a sustainable, greener future, more copper is the answer, not less. Your average electric vehicle has somewhere between 4 and 7 times the amount of copper that a traditional vehicle does, right? So in order to improve efficiencies across all copper or all electrical transmission, more copper, not less, is the answer there. So I guess a couple of other key points before I move on. That they're finally got some copper flowing there, the tappers do. And that's what I wanted to let it play for. As you'll see, they're working through that process and following the real steps to get copper flowing. But copper is 100% recyclable. And so that's one of the reasons it's also a very sustainable metal. So again, the greener and more sustainable future, the answer is definitely more copper. So this particular one is one of the other furnaces. This is the FS slag furnace. The FS stands for flash smelting furnace. And this particular one, the tasks, you'll see a couple of the trainees working through as well. But how the tapping is set up, how it works is there's a series of holes, a higher one on the furnace and a lower one on the furnace. The higher one is for pulling off slag and impurities. So when you heat up these furnaces, the impurities rise to the top, the copper goes to the bottom. So they will pull off that slag. And there's actually a video not on here, I didn't include it, of me as player 3 watching this process because I was able to throw it on just sitting at home in my home office and walk through it with them. But we didn't include it because it shows me putting my head in the launders, which is where that hot copper is. Because I'm looking at the process, right? And I'm thinking, this is amazing. I can look up and down the copper flowing here. So we didn't include that video. But what they're doing here, the process of tapping, the furnace itself is, again, full of molten metal, but it's sealed with clay plugs. Now they have a faceplate that has cooling and stuff built in. The furnace itself has cooling built in around the edges. And what they're doing is they're taking these oxygen lances and they're cutting a hole into the furnace through this faceplate, okay? But they have to not get into the water. If they get into the water, that becomes an explosion event. We don't want that to happen, right? So it's a very, for an entry position, frankly, a very, very dangerous job, and we want them to do it right, and we want them to do it right every time. So that's what they're doing. They're either burning in at the higher level to take off slag, which then goes out, actually, is cooled. I don't know if you saw in that first video that truck that was really odd looking, that's carrying a slag pot. They take that out, that has to cool for about 50 hours. They run that back through a crusher, and then they run it through the recycle process and run it again. And we do that over and over and over again to get all of the copper out of it. So this particular video, you'll see that they've got the copper flowing, right? And they'll actually start doing, they open up the launders here, and they can take samples and measurements. The copper is around 2,500 degrees, if I remember right? So it's a very hot environment. So once they get that copper flowing and get it on to the next stage, then they'll use a clay plug to stop that flow, right? And like I said, the copper's either flowing out slag to get rid of it or to put it into one of the next furnaces or to do a pour. And they're measuring the temperature on that one. So a couple of the things that we're learning. So obvious immediate needs was just the health and safety of our people, right? But we needed to be able to get the message across to them. They literally were yelling to each other and using hand signals to train people in the past, right? So again, we've only are a few weeks in to our first group that took the training. I've got a quote there on the screen you can read from Justin, one of my subject matter experts. Justin is a 33 or 34-year Kennecott employee, a bit old school, and he's also 4th or 5th generation Kennecott. Been around a long time. But he's not necessarily a, hey, put on a headset first kind of guy. And he's thrilled with this, absolutely thrilled with this. And you can see that he's thrilled that they know where to go and what to do right when they get out on the floor already. They can identify the tools they're going to be using. So this is some of the stuff we're doing now. We've also got some next steps that are kind of exciting. We've already started talking about a few of them. So we have a number of things you cannot replicate, right? You just can't replicate some of the dangerous things that could happen, but we want them to be prepared for them if they do. You'll see March 18th, 2020, 7:09 in the morning, Salt Lake City had a 5.7 earthquake. Now for you California folks, that's like, yeah, yesterday, whatever, it's just the same. But that doesn't happen often, okay? And it was only 9 miles from our smelter. Caused us a significant amount of damage, okay? Now the problem is, how do you train someone to prepare for an earthquake shutdown? Those were scenarios that had been talked about, but we had not figured out how to train on. Okay, we've started going down those paths. This is the next step for us. Things that are again, too dangerous to simulate, happen too infrequently, things you hope will never happen. leaks and other process upsets, things like that are some of the things that we're working on. So we're kind of excited about that. And then I've got, garbage in, garbage out on this one. That's probably too strong of a term. But one of the things we learned early from some other simulation that we did was that we use subject matter experts a lot to sign folks off on a field verification or a competency check. But it varies dramatically depending on that person who's signing them off. We had some significant success. We have a very expensive truck simulator for our haul trucks, another entry point into our mining side of the business, not on the smelting side. We've got a very expensive simulator, right? They sit in it, it's the exact same cab that they're driving, and they learn that. It tracks enormous amounts of metrics. But I can tell you when someone leaves that simulator if they're competent or not, and it doesn't care anything about you, if it likes you or not. It's going to give you a score that is not subjective. So that's the part that we're really excited about for the rest of these simulations. We want to try and build the same thing, take the variability out of the subject matter expert, right, and score people as either need some work, getting there, or very, very competent expert in the field. So that's some of the future stuff we're learning. I talked about being inspired by a few of the successes we had with the heavy mining equipment or haul truck simulations as well. I have a friend who is an airline pilot, and I know we had Boeing and Airbus folks here. He works for a major U.S. airline, has flown for many, many years, recently transitioned from Boeing planes to Airbus planes. So you airplane folks will know, I guess that's a fairly big thing. It's a joystick versus traditional controls. I don't know that much about it. But one of the things that amazed me in talking to him was that his first actual flight in the airplane was with paying customers on a commercial flight. And the question I asked was, are you that confident in your training program to be able to say that same kind of thing? So think about that as you get on your plane to go home today or tomorrow or whenever. Your pilot may have never flown that plane before, right? That was an amazing thing for me, but that was inspirational for me to say, wow, what do we do? What do we need to do to get to the point where we're that confident? Because in our business, it only is a matter of a few inches or a few seconds or a few whatevers, and someone is dead, right? So that's something that's hugely important to us. We are looking at digital twins, both physically as well as virtually. We are loving what we're seeing in terms of augmented, right, at the conference and what we might be able to do with work instructions there. So a lot of pretty exciting things going forward. One of the other, I guess, kind of key things that we're trying to do is keep it pretty simple. As I mentioned, Justin, been around for a few days in our organization. We want to make it simple enough that someone like him can put it on and understand it quickly and easily, but also we want it to be enticing for some of the younger generation or something that they really appreciate as well. And we can actually give folks a bit of the experience before they hire on with us and decide they don't love it, right? We don't feel like it's an option not to move. There is a generation of folks that grew up on this. I have a 15-year-old son that lives and breathes this. He loves it. And actually, when I had him put the first version of the training on, a few months ago, he said, I keep waiting for a zombie to come out, Dad. It does look a little like that, but yes, that is probably aspirationally what we want, is for our folks to be able to do that job perfectly when they hit the ground the first day, and do it safely. So some of the guiding principles for us, like I said, we're a work in progress. We do not have an organization that is innovative and supportive, or they're not supportive, but it's just a handful of us technical trainers saying, how do we take these pieces on? Now, we were fortunate to get some funding to build this first part. That was really great, and we've got a lot of next steps. But these are some of the guiding principles, right? We want to make it safer, make it faster, more effective, sticky. Let's have some fun while we're doing it, and then if we can make it measurable, take the variability out of it, that's a win for us. So I think that is all that I have. We go back to that.
I got it right here. Questions? Yeah. Let me bring it up here first. I got you after, Vince. Just introduce yourself.
Okay. All right. Michelle Stewart with Chevron. I'm an industrial hygienist, actually. So this was very fascinating for me. I had a question regarding, so you have people who are coming in who've never done this before, never been to a smelter. What was their journey to even learn how to use VR, right? Using those devices, and how long did it take before it didn't distract them from what you were trying to teach them?
I don't know if we know enough yet on that one. We've only had that first group, and it was literally just our folks that kind of knew it, because we've been working with it as we built it out over the past few months, to put it on their head and start talking through how it works. Now, we do have some other VR simulations. We have a forklift simulator that we bought from the nice folks out there on the floor that we've been using for a few months. We have a crane simulator that has a VR, mobile, and overhead. We've had some variability in that, how quickly they learn it, right? But it's pretty early for this one so far. The nice part about this one is it's not self-guided. You literally have your subject matter still in the room generally in this case, although they could be anywhere with the headset on, walking you through step 1, step 2, step 3. So more to come in that space for sure.
Hi, Vince Herrera with DuPont. Real nice presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
Question, two-part question. One, how long did it take you to create that process from initial beginning all the way to what you showed us? And then the second part is, I know you mentioned investment, just, I don't know if you can disclose this or not, just kind of getting a rough feel for what that investment would run, because it's a pretty nice model, just trying to get a feel for that.
So forever and a lot.
Perfect answer, thank you. Next question.
We actually, I think, and I don't know if Rhea and Joe are here, yeah, back in the back from Sketchbook. I think we found them, some of my team joined this session in 2020 virtually. That was our first sort of, we know we want more, we want to learn. We started engaging with them. It took some months to get first conversations to happen. It probably, once we pulled the trigger, has it been a year and a half? Maybe not quite that long? I don't know exactly, but probably at least a year. So they came to the site, did their video, all that stuff, December. So we're coming up on a year since that, and a fair amount. Now, it's chunks that we've built out, and it's big money, $100,000 a chunk. Some of the scenarios are 30 grand, 50 grand, 75 grand, right? Additional kinds of things that we know when we put those together. Now, we're hopeful once we have our kind of full ecosystem in place that gets a little less expensive long term. But yeah, it was not a small ask from our business to invest in it. But frankly, our smelter is the last fatality in Rio Tinto's history was in 2017, right? And all of us that worked there were there working, in our business at that time, and had a major impact on us. And so we're always conscious of, yes, ROI is important, but what can we do to really move in a direction that makes our work safer and makes everything about what we do better, more efficient. So.
Mike, I'm Anand Jaiswal, Digital Director for Industry 4.0 for Mativ. One question is, how do you measure your ROI for all these training needs? And by the way, thanks for this presentation. Smelter was my first foray into IT 25 years ago. So the first project that I was scheduled to or delivered was a smelter design.
Excellent. Well, we didn't even look at cost ROI, I don't think, in this one at all. We simply just knew that the training environment was almost impossible. We knew that the volume of people we were running through it made it really complicated. We know there is an actual ROI because we believe, one, if we can have people view this stuff before they get there and self-select out, that's going to be a big starting point for us. We don't have the turnover we have. But we also know we're going to see the roughly 1 week to 2 weeks that it takes to get someone up to speed. We believe that will be days rather than weeks. Again, we have our second group starting in the next couple of weeks, so more in that space. But we did not look at this one at a cost at all. We simply just said, what does it take to get what we believe we need for a work environment or a training environment out of this one? Yep, this was a safety ROI and experience ROI, basically only.
Mitch, can't thank you enough. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Guys, I've got another question. I'm so sorry. No, I'll jump down, don't wait.
Yeah, mine is really. Mine isn't VR or AR related so much, but I'm just curious with the turnover and the kind of the realistic job preview strategy that you guys are taking. Do you do any physical abilities testing, to kind of screen people out? I'm just curious around maybe some of the selection that goes into this.
We do, actually. And across all of our roles, we have varying fit for duty requirements. And so all of our new hire candidates, if they get to a certain point, will go do those fit for duty tests. And so yes, there's a pulmonary function test. There's obviously respirator fit test and a number of other things for that. But there's also some lifting, it's a 12-hour shift, right, in this environment. So you understand that it's not wonderful. So yes, we do quite a bit of that. And these guys are frankly some of the biggest and baddest you'd ever meet that actually thrive in that environment. So.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.